When I bought my Galaxy S25 Ultra, I gotta admit, my expectations weren't super high, but I hadn't covered an Ultra phone since the S23 Ultra. So I figured it made a lot of sense to cover this S25 Ultra, and I ended up really liking it. First off, I just think it's a really nice looking phone. The anti-reflective screen is really good, and you see the camera work from this phone almost in every single video that you watch on this channel, because anytime you're watching that kind of top-down footage where I'm like showing a phone or a tutorial, whatever it might be, it's probably being filmed by this phone. I think that the video looks really nice from this thing. Battery life is good. It still does have the S Pen, which I literally absolutely never use. Battery life was solid, performance was solid. There's just a lot to like here. With all of that in mind, the Galaxy S26 Ultra is going to be coming up in just a handful of months, and via OnLeaks, in collaboration with Android Authority, we have our first look at some CAD renders of the S26 Ultra. So we're going to first off, just visually speaking, take a look at these renders and see how they differ. So here is the view looking at the back of the device, and the first obvious thing that I'm seeing is that they have added a bump around the individual camera bumps. On the 25 Ultra, they are all individual, but they've added that ring around it, and that looks very reminiscent of the new Galaxy Z Fold 7. We basically have the Z Fold 7 camera bump with, of course, the other camera and the probably like IR depth sensors, LED flash sort of outside of it. So that is definitely a little bit of a change. It looks like the power button and volume rockers are probably in about the same spot. The bezels on the front display, I think that they look about as thin as they did last year, but the corner radius is definitely rounder than this. This is like fairly sharp. It's a fairly squared off device. They did round the corners, which I think is probably smart, but this is a little bit more rounded than it was the prior year. Not much else to see here. Going to the next one, we can see a little bit about the thickness, the depth, the height, I don't know, some measurement of these camera bumps here. Obviously on the 25 Ultra, the cameras do stick out pretty far, and I don't know that we're really seeing much of a difference there. It may be that this bump on a bump look is sort of disguising how far it is sticking out. We do definitely still have the flat side rails, so again, not a whole lot here. From this view here, we can see a little bit of the bottom of the device, and it looks to me as though most of this looks the same. I can see the S Pen, I can see a speaker, USB-C, a microphone, and that looks to be the SIM tray, maybe. Here's an interesting thing. This is a small difference. Let's see if I can show you this. Look at the SIM tray there. The little button to eject it is over here. And on this image, there is a hole, but it's over there. Have they flipped the SIM tray over? Interesting. Up here on the top, we have the same two little microphone holes that we have on the current one, so very few changes. And then we do have this video that they uploaded just sort of going around the device, and I think that this really isn't going to show us a whole lot more. I would love to see a perspective where we can see how tall the cameras are, and I think maybe that's about as good as it's going to get. I do think that they might be sticking out just a little bit further, and part of that is because, if I'm not mistaken, they do talk about the thickness here. It will measure approximately 7.9 millimeters. The 25 Ultra was 8.2 millimeters. So keep in mind, if the cameras stay basically static and the body of the device gets a little bit thinner, we're talking about 0.3 of a millimeter, well, that's just going to translate into height on the camera setup, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here. They also talk about it being 217 grams. That's basically identical. This is 218 grams, so no real change there. The phone is tipped to use the new M14 OLED panels. That's good. That should be an improvement there as well. The tech will allow the display to be thinner, reduce glare, and improve light transmission. 6.89-inch display. We're at 6.9 inches, so that's probably exactly identical as well. They've got some additional rumors down here. When it comes to charging, they say rumors are going back and forth. There are some people claiming it will be 45-watt wired charging once again, but there have been other reports saying it might go up to 60-watt charging. That would be really, really nice to see. Although, to me, I think 45 watts probably fine for most people. I think the phone that needs to see the charging speed increase is probably more of the Fold, which I would love to have 45-watt charging on the Fold, but regardless, 45 watts, maybe 60 watts. The phone will include magnets on the inside, so we're hoping Samsung will make full use of them. That is very, very big. But what's frustrating here is that, like I've shown you in some other content, if the magnet and the charging coil is in the same place as it currently would be, the cameras are going to be in the way. If I pop my Pitaka case back on and I grab a battery bank, you can see here that it wants to attach, but it wants to be slightly on top of that bottom camera. So if they don't change the camera orientation and they put the magnet in, that's great, but we're going to be stuck with this type of situation. If they lower, I mean, look, they've got a little bit of room. My dog just hit their bowl. You do have a little bit of room down here. So you could drop it down just a little bit and still, kind of be okay. So maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe they're going to lower the coil and the magnet a little bit to make room. I am excited by the concept of having magnets, Galaxy Snap, whatever they're going to call it, but we do have some adjustments that need to be made there. 5,000 milliamp hour battery, likely to remain unchanged, and honestly, it's probably fine. The battery life was already really, really good. Cameras, they are talking about the same 200 megapixel unit that we've had for a while, 1 over 1.3 inch sensor. It's a pretty darn good sensor. A 50 megapixel ultra wide. A telephoto camera could actually get a downgrade. That would be pretty dumb. A 10 megapixel 1 micrometer pixel 3x optical zoom. Yeah, that would not be. I mean, it's time. The 3x just needs to get a lot better. The good news is that we do still have the 5x, which is a 50 megapixel 1 over 2.52 inch sensor. So at least you do have that. But yeah, why do we even have that 3x at this point? This is a 200 megapixel sensor. You could probably do 3 and 4x with that pretty well and just not even have the 3x at this point, and then the 5 takes over at 5. I don't know. Hopefully that's not going to happen. If they do actually downgrade to 3x, I think that they are completely going in the wrong direction there. But let's be real. Even if the sensor itself gets smaller and we panic about these sorts of things, this happened with the Pixel Fold. They made some of the sensors smaller when they went from Fold to 9 Pro Fold, and the performance was actually better in most scenarios. So processing is what actually matters on these things. So more than likely, expect that camera setup to perform in a very, very similar way to what it did last year. To me, based on the look of this device and based on the inclusion of the built-in magnets for Qi 2 or even Qi 2.2 compatibility, I think that we're going to be dealing with a launch that is really similar to what we just got with the Pixel 10. They're probably going to talk about like the same sorts of things. They're going to have their Galaxy Snap accessories, whatever they're going to call it. And they're probably going to rely a lot on AI. Expect to see very, very similar things coming from Samsung compared to what we just got from Google. Maybe the way that they're going to kind of cope with these camera sensors, in particular, this mid-range zoom being kind of crummy. Where did we see the measurement here? Here it is, 1 over 3.94 inches. I think the old one was 1 over 3.52 inches or something like that. We're getting even smaller. Maybe the way that they compensate for that is with AI enhancement, like we are seeing from the Pixel devices. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. I think it's probably going to be a very, very solid device. Regardless, I'm going to put a link in the description to this Android headlines article so you can go look at those renders for yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.